Okay guys, I've got a 16 by 20 canvas. This is a gallery style wrapped, so it's about an inch thick with, it's pre-gessoed with the canvas wrapped around to the back. So my colors. I've got brilliant blue with a little bit of golden interference blue and some iridescent medium. There's only little bits in varying amounts because they're kind of leftovers, so I want to do something with the leftovers and I want to try something a little different. So, brilliant blue, interference blue. This one is Phthalo Green, Sap Green, Prussian blue with white. This one is Phthalo Turquoise. This one is Prussian blue and a lot more white. So this is the same colors, but obviously different shades. Copper and rich gold. And then I've got my white here. So paint, Floetrol, tiny bit of water. No silicone. So I think I want to do a flip cup on this. We'll see. I'm going to do 4 cups because I think that's how much paint I will need. Okay, so let's start with some white in each cup. It's a little more white than necessary. So the consistency you're looking for, see if I can show you with the white, is you want it to pour off in a ribbon like that. You don't want it any thinner than, say, honey or thick syrup. And you want to be careful with how much water and any pouring medium or Floetrol or glue you add to your paint because you don't want to break it down too much. So it's something to kind of keep in mind. I'd use a 2-to-1 ratio when I start. So 2 parts Floetrol, which is this stuff in case you haven't seen it, to 1 part paint. And I mix that up and then I add water if it needs it. Sometimes it doesn't need it. Just kind of depends on the viscosity of your paints and the higher quality paints. So the artist style paints, the heavy body paints, will be thicker than like craft paint. And it's typically because they use better quality ingredients in them because they're intended for artist use and not necessarily craft projects. So that's just to say that the artist level paints are intended to last a lot longer than, say, a craft paint will. I'm going to add the light blue last, I think. So I don't have every color in every cup, mostly because I don't have enough paint. That's okay because I was kind of wanting to use up what was left of these colors. I didn't want to add more. So we're gonna see what this is gonna do. And to be honest with you, every single time you do a pour, it's a little bit of an experiment because paints are only so predictable and only so controllable. Sometimes you get something that's amazing and sometimes you get something that you're not so happy with. So you gotta embrace the chaos. All right. So here's what I've come up with to kind of catch some of this runoff. Cooling rack, 2 foil baking pans, and then I've got a larger foil pan that goes in the bottom of your oven to kind of catch some of this runoff and kind of contain the mess at least a little bit. On the smaller canvases, this works a lot better. On the bigger canvases, like this one, a 16 by 20, it's not ideal, but you know, you work with what you got, right? All right, so. So I'm working with a heavier, thicker body paint. I tend to add like half the Floetrol at first. And that just makes it easier to work the Floetrol into the paint. You don't get lumps nearly as easily that way. And you're basically evening out the viscosities of the paint and the Floetrol, so you're making them more even. And that will make it easier for you to add the rest of your Floetrol or pour a medium or whatever else you add to your paint. I like to use Floetrol because it's inexpensive in comparison to, like let's say, Liquitex pouring medium, for example. And it's an easy step. That's the only thing I use. So I don't have to mix or measure or buy half a dozen different ingredients to make a single pour medium. I just use Floetrol. It doesn't have a smell, at least not that I can detect. It's a volumizer. It's intended to mix with paint. That's what it's made for house paint. To alleviate brush marks. So that means it's self-leveling. So when you add it to a canvas, it's going to allow the canvas to keep what will stay on there and dry smoothly, and run off what doesn't want to stay on there. So if you've got a nice tight canvas, you're not going to get puddling or pooling in the middle of it. And the Floetrol just helps do that. Like I said, I do keep my white thicker than my colors. So that's the way you want to pour off a nice ribbon. If you're in any of the Facebook groups, you might have seen a lot of discussion about whether or not to add your negative space paint, if you're using it, to the background before you add your pour. You don't have to do this. The reason I do it is because it helps the paint in the cup to flow. And so it becomes a prerogative kind of thing. I like to do it because I think it leads to a better looking painting at the end. I have to tilt less, and that helps me keep any cells that I like. If you want to pour things off, you can certainly do that still. You probably will waste a little more paint, but it's a prerogative thing. It's not a necessary thing. So I've got my 4 cups, and I'm going to move them from the middle out towards the edge, and then pick up the outer edge and pull back in towards the middle. And you can also hold your non-poured cups down and move the paint that's on the canvas around a little bit before you pick up the remaining cups. So I moved that last cup out towards the corner and then picked up the inner rim, moved it in towards the middle. And like most things, the more you do it, the better feel you'll get for how to move your canvas, where you want the paint to flow, how to get the effects you like, kind of things like that. But try to go into this without a definite idea of what you must have on the canvas, because it likes to do its own thing. It's got a mind of its own in many respects. And you'll have a better time and you'll get better results. You'll be more satisfied with what you do get if you're less worried about having a certain look on the canvas. And I'm loving how this looks right now. It is freaking gorgeous. Okay, so now that it's all poured and I've kind of tilted it as much as I want to, because I'm really loving all of this right here. And I love how the white has come over the top of these colors, and I want to say muted them out, but lightened them a little bit. Love this. I love what's going on in this. And just to kind of give you a little bit of a reference, so no silicone in this whatsoever, but you are seeing cells pop up, like right here. Now I think that is because of the bubbles in the paint that are caused when you mix it. I don't know. But I prefer these types of naturally occurring cells, kind of unpredictable popping ones popping up, over the ones you get with silicone where they're everywhere. But to each your own. So if you love the silicone look, go by all means add it. I would start very minimally though. I wouldn't add 2 or 3 drops to each color. I would add 1 to each color. Maybe even not even each color, until you get a feel for how much silicone you need to get the salt production you want. Because keep in mind, as you layer your colors in your cups, as you can see, they do mix a little bit. So if you've got a lot of silicone in each color and you don't want an explosion of cells, you only want a few, then maybe only add it to 1 or 2 colors. Let's see if you can see this. Oh, I can't really see it on camera. So what I'm using is just an embossing heat tool. It's just a heat gun. It blows hot air. This is designed to do heat embossing on paper crafting. It's not really the same use as a torch would be. It doesn't get nearly that hot. However, it works perfectly for what I want, which is really just to get any surface bubbles to pop so that I have a smoother texture when it dries. It's really all it does.